In this video, you're going to learn why you perform well in practice, but not in games, and how you can fix this. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental game coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Now before we get into the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're an athlete looking to improve your mental game, because I put out new videos each day on sports psychology and mental training. Now, when you're performing well in practice, but you're not performing well in games, this can be incredibly frustrating because you're seeing yourself performing well in practice and you know that you have the talents, but there's something that's keeping you from performing well in games. There's a disconnect. Now, within sports psychology, there's really three things that we can point to that are different between games and practices that are probably causing this. Number one is going to be pressure. When you're practicing, you might feel pressure to do well in practice, and you might want to do well in front of your coach so that maybe you get some more playing time. But there's not at all the same amount of pressure during practices that there are in games. So whenever you go into a game and you start to feel this pressure, that can cause you to play a little bit more defensively and maybe a little bit more tight because you don't want to mess up because you're feeling that pressure. And that leads into the two other areas that we kind of see as things that can be blamed for you performing well in practice but then not performing well in games. One of them is the fear of failure. In practices, you probably don't want to make a ton of mistakes because nobody wants to make mistakes. But in practices, mistakes are often accepted a lot more. But during games, mistakes mean you weren't good enough. It can mean that you let your team down. It can mean that your stats are going to drop. So mistakes become something that you fear. And when you fear failing, so you fear making a mistake, what's going to happen is you begin to play timidly because you don't want to make a mistake. So now your mindset is more focused on not wanting to fail rather than wanting to succeed. And when you play with a defensive, timid mindset, you're going to hold yourself back. So a lot of times the athletes I work with, they say they feel like they're playing with their foot on the brake because they're so worried about not making a mistake that they hold themselves back. And then the third reason is sports performance anxiety. When you're in practice, yes, you might feel anxiety. You might feel the nervousness and those anxious feelings because you want to do well. But likely this is amplified during a game because during a game, you have the opponent, you have fans watching, you have your friends watching, maybe your parents are there. And also you have the anxiety thinking, I need to do well to help my team win. I need to do well so that my coach keeps playing me. There are all of these thoughts that lead to anxiety. And sports performance anxiety really just involves you worried about what's going to happen. So when you're thinking about how am I going to play in this game, I really hope I play well, I really hope I don't mess up, all of those feed anxious feelings. And whenever you're anxious, number one, this is going to distract you, so you're not focused on what you need to be focused on. But also what happens is you begin to tense up. And the more tense you are, you're not going to be as relaxed. You're also not going to feel as confident, so you're not going to perform as freely. So those are the three main reasons why we see athletes perform well in practice, but not in games. There's going to be more pressure. You're probably dealing with some fear of failure, and then some sports performance anxiety. Now, what can you do about this? What can you do as an athlete to make sure that you take those practice skills and you translate them into games? Well, what you first need to do is identify the cause. You need to figure out what's stopping you from performing well in games like you are in practice. And what we can do is look back to the three reasons that I gave. Is it pressure? Are you feeling a lot of fear? Or are you dealing with anxiety? Or, which frustratingly is likely the case, it's a combination of the three. And then the second step is you need to work through that cause. Because no matter what you're dealing with, if it's keeping you from performing well in games like you are in practice, you have to begin working on overcoming this distractor, right? Overcoming the thing that is keeping you from performing your best. So what I want to do is go through these three and give you one exercise you can use for each of them to begin overcoming it. So let's start with pressure. If you're dealing with a lot of pressure right now and that's keeping you from performing well in games, what you can do is begin using some mental imagery. Mental imagery is where you are going to sit down and you're going to visualize yourself performing. Visualization or mental imagery helps a lot with pressure because you can put yourself in that situation where you're feeling pressure without actually being in that situation. So what you want to do is get yourself into a quiet location, and then you want to sit down in a comfortable position and take a few deep breaths. The reason you're taking these deep breaths is to calm yourself down and to work on clearing your mind. Then you want to begin visualizing. What you're going to do with this pressure visualization is you're first going to visualize in as much detail as you can the scene where you feel pressure. So if you're a basketball player and you feel pressure when you're shooting a free throw, really create that scene. If you're a pitcher and you're feeling pressure when you have runners on base, picture that scene. You want to really go into detail with the situation where you're feeling pressure. Then what you're going to do is you want to feel what you typically feel in that situation. So if you're feeling anxious, you want to feel anxious. If you're feeling unconfident, you want to feel unconfident. You want to get into that state. But then what you need to do is you need to switch it. How do you think you should feel? How should you feel to perform your best? You probably need to feel confident. You probably need to feel calm and relaxed. So switch out that feeling that you normally have for the feeling that you want. And then visualize yourself performing well. And this isn't something that you want to just do once. It's something you want to do on a consistent basis, just like with all of these exercises, because mental training needs to be done consistently. And if you do, that's where you start to see some progress made. Now, for performance anxiety, what we can use is an exercise known as SelfTalk. SelfTalk is where you focus on the thoughts that you're having going into a game and during a game. I found SelfTalk to be one of the best mental training tools that we can use to overcome performance anxiety. Because what you want to do in the moment where you're feeling anxious is you really want to work on getting confident, but also you want to work on feeling calm and relaxed, and SelfTalk can help you do that. What you do with this SelfTalk exercise is you think about, what kind of thoughts do I normally have whenever I'm anxious? What are those thoughts like? What am I thinking about? What am I focused on? Make a list, and then you want to come up with some alternatives. And then with these alternatives, what you want to do is you want to read them to yourself every day so that you memorize them. And then, before a game, and as the game begins, you just want to make sure that you are repeating those self-talk statements to yourself. And that's going to help you build a feeling of confidence and also help calm yourself down, which is going to help reduce those feelings of anxiety. And then for the fear of failure, what you want to do is use something known as performance objectives. Whenever you're afraid of making a mistake, you're focused on the future. You're focused on what's going to happen. What we want to do is say, okay, of course you don't want to make a mistake, but what do you actually need to focus on to put yourself in the best position to succeed? Because with the fear of failure, we really have to work on getting you to stop focusing so much on not wanting to fail and to focus more on wanting to succeed. So with performance objectives, what you do is you think, what are some pieces of my process? So whether it's mental or whether it's physical, that if I focused on those, they would give me the best chance of succeeding. So for you, if you're dealing with the fear of failure, focus on setting some objectives. And then as you go into the game, your responsibility is just to focus on those objectives. So those are 3 exercises you can use to begin working through the things that are keeping you from performing well in games like you are in practice. Now, if you're interested in a little bit more of a personalized and in-depth approach to this, then you need some one-on-one mental performance coaching. Now, the mental performance coaching that I offer involves weekly coaching calls where we will work through your main causes that are keeping you from performing well in games like you are in practice. And then what we'll also do is work on some more specific and tailored skills and exercises that you can use to begin overcoming these and translating your skills in practice into games. So if you're interested in learning more about one-on-one mental performance coaching, I put a link to it in the description below, so go ahead and click on that to learn more. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you're interested in learning more about one-on-one mental performance coaching, head over to successstartswithin.com.